To start with, I want to thank Yota and Andre for inviting me and having me here. And it is my pleasure to share with you my experience with this particular people. But before I go there, and before I introduce myself, I'd like to read a verse which is really very important in what we're doing, and in general, of course, in what we do in this path with the Lord. It's from Isaiah 61, a well-known passage, verses 1 and 2. The Spirit of the Lord Jehovah is upon me, because he hath anointed me to preach good tidings unto the meek. He hath sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and the opening of the prison to them that are bound. I want you to just remember this verse all along, and remember it in general in your walk with Christ. Let me introduce myself to you. My name is Polyrakis. I'm a Cypriot in origin, born in the Congo, and left the Congo. That time it was Belgian Congo, when I was 5 years old. I got married to a Cypriot and had 3 children, and then my husband died when we had 7 years of marriage, and I was 25 years old then. So I left and went to Greece, where my mother was, and lived there for 50 years. I got married to my second husband 3 years after I landed Greece. And a year later, I received the Lord. And I won't stop into this part of my life, because it's a whole other story. As Doreen was saying this morning, it's a journey, part of a journey. With my husband, it took him 6 years to understand what I was following the Lord. He was a strong Orthodox, so all that I was believing was American things that I would soon forget. But of course he was watching me all the time, getting upset with me, not allowing me to go to church, not allowing me to even read my Bible or pray. Very strong against these beliefs. And at that time, of course, it was hard for me, but it was a time of my sanctification. It was a time where I was humbling myself, rather the Lord was humbling me. And the time I was, my faith grew stronger, and I had started trusting the Lord, because one day he told me, "He is my son." And then later on he said, "He is a minister to me." And then he became one. And then it was hard to stop him. So, and together we had a heart for the marginalized, the drug addicts, the people who were, a bit strange. So when he died was a shock, but that was the time when I said, "Okay, Lord, I'm not going to ask you why you took him, but I'll ask you to give me something hard to do, so that I commit myself to you. For whatever you want me to do, I'll do it." Until then, with my husband, we were mostly with drug addicts. That's where the last person we had ministered together was a drug addict. So when he left, and then I said that prayer, that's why I'm telling you, watch it what you pray, because God answers your prayers. 3 months after that, I said, Lord, okay, you haven't taken me, and you haven't given me something to do. And he said, you are not yet ready. So that made me start wondering, what was it that I had to, be ready for? And I realized that my heart was still mourning for the loss, that I was still with the dead. So I cried one day, and I said, okay, just let me cry, let me have it out of my system, and I understand you don't want all these things, I'll follow you. And that was it. It kind of stopped the mourning, stopped the pity me, and I went to church that Sunday. I never stopped going to church, of course, but that particular Sunday, the team from the Nazarene ministry, which is a ministry to support the men and women in prostitution, and in reality an anti-trafficking organization. They came to our church to present their work and kind of asking support from us. This is how they would support the ministry. And I was doing the translation because the lady who was the leader, Emma Shansby, forget the other name anyway, they were Americans. So I had to translate for them. And while translating, the Lord said, this is what I want you to do. And I said, certainly I'm not hearing the Lord, because I don't like this. I don't understand it. These girls have chosen to do that themselves. So what am I doing with them? But the more I was translating, the more this voice was coming up. And I said, okay, when I step down, I'll go and ask, and you'll see that you're wrong. I realized it was the Lord speaking to me by that time. So I went and asked them, and I said, what do you really do? They said, oh, we just meet them in the street or in the brothels and share with them the love of Christ and see if they need something. I said, oh, okay, when do you go? Well, we go on Monday at 8 o'clock in the evening. I said, well, that's impossible because I just finished work. At that time, I was working at my pastor's office as a secretary. I had retired from Cyprus Airways, where I was working as a ground staff. And then the second day that they were going out was a Wednesday at 10 o'clock in the morning. So I said, oh, it's impossible, I'm working at that time. So I said, you see, it doesn't work. And then she said, well, we've got another team going out on Thursday night. And I said, what time they go on? She said, 10 o'clock. Oh, okay, that's fine with me. I'll come on that, but I'm not promising anything because I'm not sure if I have the time, if I can do it. So she said, sure, come. So that Thursday night I went out with them, and we went to the Nigerian girls, and I definitely didn't like it. I saw the girls, jumping in front of the cars like butterflies, and I thought, I can't do it. I said, to tell them what? But I was just watching, because the system was, if you're training, that's what I was doing that time. If you're training, you just watch what they do. The second time, you kind of, when we finish the outreach, you're told what exactly was going on, the discussions they had with them, and all the details of how you deal with them. It didn't touch me at all. And so one of the leaders said, would you like to come, would you like us to go to the transvestites? So I said, sure. And that was about 12 o'clock, midnight. I said, sure. So off we went in our cars to the road to the transvestites. There's two main roads in Athens, Kavalas and Simbru. And this is where they stand, either in their cars or outside the car, and expect the customers to come. So she told me, you have to stay in the car while the team goes out and talks with them, and just watch, and then I'll explain to you. Sure. So the first that night, I was watching as they communicated with the transvestite. And I thought, that's interesting, but how do I communicate with them? What do I tell them? I mean, they're so different. The second time, again, I was watching. Meantime, I asked her questions. What do you share with them? How do you talk to them? And who was this and who was that? The third time, she says, would you like to come out and listen yourself and talk to them? I said, sure, I'll do that. So I said, okay, God, if that's you, you better put words in my mouth, give me wisdom and love. I said, I need that. So I went out and talked with this guy the first time, and I could hear him sharing with Joan, with the other girl, all the time, saying, and my little girl this, and my little girl that. I bought her this, and I bought her that. I paid a ticket to go to Germany. I said, the little girl. So he's got a girl, got a child. So I said, oh, you got a little girl. No, he said, this is my wife, but I call her little girl because that's how I feel about her. And that made things more complicated in my brain. He's transvestite. He goes with men. He's dressed up as a woman. So he's married. Okay. I've got questions to ask Lord. So the third time I met with this particular guy, and I was talking more. I asked him, about where he's from, about his girl. And as we were sharing, he said, you know, you remind me of my mother. Do you mind if I call you Mom? And that was it. That was the confirmation. That was the thing that really touched me. And I said, okay, Lord, this is where you want me to be. I commit myself. I'm okay with that. So for 16 years, I've been ministering to these people. Questions, I know questions come up into your mind, like did to my mind. How do we minister to them? How do we approach them? They don't have to be, you know, in the street prostituting. We meet them. You might come across a man, you can tell he's a man dressed up as a woman, or maybe you cannot tell that he's a man, but there's something strange about it. How do you talk to him? Well, he's just a human being, just like you and I. Nothing different. Just the way he lives is different. How many of us really live differently? Each one of us is a unique person to God. They are unique persons to God too. So what do? First of all, we're supposed to be Christians. We're supposed to have a communication with God. We're supposed to ask him and he answers. That's what it says in Matthew 7, right? So, Lord, okay, you've sent me to these people. How do I speak to them? How do I behave? Yeah, I must not show that I'm shocked. I must not show that they're strange or ask stupid questions. So Lord, give me love, give me wisdom, and here's my mouth, use it for your glory. And he will do that. Don't allow yourself to do things that he's not telling you, that he doesn't put in your heart. You don't have to ask him, why have you become a transvestite? You're a man. No, nothing like that. He introduces himself to you as Mary. Yes, Mary. Some people at that time were telling me, you don't call them Mary, but you call them the male name. And if he doesn't tell you the male name, you address him as a he, not a she. Right from the beginning, I did not agree. My polite manners do not allow me to do that, because you introduce me with this name and I accept you with that name. Now, using anything else would be an offense. I mean, you don't have to be a Christian to know that. It's an offense if you call somebody with a different name than what his name is. And when we approach them for the first time, they're afraid of us. They wonder, why are you here? One of them, recently, I mean, after 16 years we talked, it took him 5 years to say to us something more than just hello, yes, no. So we were at a court case, and during a break, we were together, and I said, Sasa, when we first met you, you would not talk to us. You would say yes, no, and it took about 5 years. Yes, he said, what did you expect me to know? To understand why you were there? Women. What did you want from me? I said, didn't you understand that we just cared? No, nobody cared for me. Why should you care? So now you know, of course I know that you love me, you care for me. I've seen you all these years. But it took him 5 years to understand that we cared for him. And maybe we didn't show him anything more than we showed everybody else, but they hear about our behavior, because this community, though they fight together, they take to court each other, they want you to be dead, but they talk to each other, the word goes around, this team has been coming and this is what they're doing and this is what they're saying. So we were at their funerals, we were there. At their hospital, we were there. So this was going on. So the word was spread that these people really care. They came to the hospital. They stood by our side. They were feeding us. All the things that Jesus did, we tried to do them and do them purely. It wasn't, if none of us, the 5 people that we used to go, did not pretend. If we didn't feel okay, we just didn't go. One of us was not feeling okay, we just didn't go, afraid that we would pass this negativity to them. What we wanted to pass on to them was that we love them. Now, what do we do with the Word of God? Yes, certainly we don't hold the Word of God in our hands and, hit them on the head. You have to believe this. No. This is where we wear the Word of God to them. When they needed food, we offered food. When they needed to be taken care of at the hospital, we were there. They knew we were believers. Quite often we would, in our discussion with them, we would share, the Bible says this, and we open up a discussion on that. from any word that they were saying, we would grab that and use the Bible there. Not forcing it down to their throat. There were times that we never spoke about Jesus or the Word of God, nothing. But we would listen. That was something else. Though the first time they would not talk to us, they would avoid any communication. Once they started, they wouldn't stop. The customer would come and they would turn around and tell me, don't you see I've got work now? Go around and come back. Yeah. It was, we were surprised. I mean, in the beginning it was, don't you see I have work to do. And then it was the opposite, telling the customer, just go around the block and come back. I've got work to do now. And this was just because we were listening to them. Many times they tested us. They would use bad language and they were expecting to see a reaction from us. We would not react at all. I mean, that was the moment where we would put the neutral facade that I'm not touched, I'm not shocked, I didn't hear what you said, and then I could see their eyes. And because I was the oldest, sometimes they would say, don't listen to what I'm saying, you know. That was our behavior. And there were times that we were tired. I mean, just think that we would go out at 12 o'clock, midnight, until 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock. So we were tired, but tired that we would not see any results. And even more tired when we would go to church and do a presentation of our ministry. People would ask, so how many did you win for Christ? And our answer was none. But we know that the word is going out. So those moments where we were really tired, we would pray, because every time before going out for the outreach, we would pray and have a devotion, and then we would go out. So we would pray, Lord, give us a hint, give us a word that whatever we're doing is not in vain, that what we're doing is somehow touching them. So that particular night, one would tell us, hey, listen, don't give up on us. Okay? Don't give up on us. Be patient. We will come. It's coming around. How did they know? Yeah. How did they know that moment? So that was God answering our prayers that particular night. Another case was one of those again that it took him 3 years to respond. And then he invited us to his house, and we had dinner together and giving us calls, where are you tonight? You didn't come. He said one night, Martha, I want you to know that what you're doing is not in vain. I have changed since you started coming to us. So I don't know what God is doing there, but I know that He's working. It takes time, and only to think, I think Doreen was saying this morning, that God, it's the balm of healing that He's putting. It takes time to heal. I mean, you cut your leg, and it takes time to heal. You need to put ointment there, you want to clean it and all that stuff, and it takes time. And sometimes you hit yourself again at the same spot. And this is what happens to these guys. They've been hurt. None of them has a normal story. In the beginning they tell you it's all normal. Yeah. No, none of them. One case was, and this one has come to the Lord, he was 13 years old. living on an island. His parents divorced. In the beginning, he was staying with his mother, and one day his mother said, "I'm tired of you, just go to your father." So he goes to his father, lives for another couple of years with the father, and the father says, "Listen, you're grown enough to support yourself. So go to Athens where you can find a job." 13 years old, put him on the boat, and the child gets off the boat, knowing nobody. Where does he go? Walks down the port, trying to understand where he is, what he is going to do. And a captain of a ship saw him and asked him, "Where are you going? What are you doing?" So the child said, "I don't know, I have nobody here." So he said, "Okay, come to my house and I'll take care of you." So he went to his house and he really took care of him. Not only he took care of him, but he was having his friends also take care of him. So when he became 17 years old, he started thinking, why should I serve him and suffer and not go outside, serve others and get paid? So he went to the Singru Avenue where all these people were. He saw them all dressed up. So he stood there expecting customers, and of course customers would go because he was a child. And then one of the transvestites saw him. This is how it all happens, and told him, I'll show you what you do. Let's go buy him clothes, dress him up, and told him what to do. So he became a transvestite. But he could not put up with this whole thing. So it was difficult. So he started taking drugs so that he would be drugged and be able to do all this. And he became a drug addict. And one day, when he was 30, 35, we were walking by him and shared with him, and he started laughing at us. For 3 years, he was laughing at us. And one day, he knocked at the doors of Nazaré and said, "Please help me." So we took him in a rehabilitation center, and at the rehabilitation center, he had to go in dressed up as a man. It was a Christian center, and that's where he changed and came out completely changed. But when he came out again, he got mixed up in church where people were not very nice to him because he was different. And he, thank God he came to Nazaré again. And that's where he asked me, he told me this whole story again. And I said, "I'll send you to one church where I know that they're going to take care of you." So he went to this church. I talked with the pastor who used to come with us outreaching. And now he's there, well taken care of, and he's got a job, and he's back to normal. But that guy was wounded many times. And the worst, he was wounded by Christians also. And that's the worst thing that can happen. One case, which is really amazing, because that's where God really changed me completely of the way I was approaching. It was still in the beginning. There was one guy, Aloma, well known all over Greece, and he was always dressed up as a woman. In his young age, he was really a beautiful woman, transvestite, and he was, that particular night we went out, and we had lost Manos, which was the guy I told you before, the drug addict. We had lost him when he came out of the rehabilitation center. And I am with a member of the team, and he says, there's Manos. I said, it's not Manos. No, he says it's Manos. So he starts calling Mano, Mano. And I said, he's not Manos. And I see this Aloma. He was furious, raging, and he comes after us. And he was big. And I thought, my God, we're getting into trouble. Stop calling him. But don't you see, he said it's Manos. So this guy, he comes close to me. He says, Madam, you should know better since you're doing this job that you don't call a transvestite by his male name. So I touched him and said, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, really. Manos told us, introduced us, himself as Manos. So this is why we called you Manos, because we thought it was you. From afar, this is what you looked at like. The guy who was with me and calling him, he just looked at him, looked at me. He didn't know what to expect more. So I started talking to him and apologized. What's your name? I said, I was supposed to know his name also since everybody knew him. He said, Aloma, and you stared at me. Okay, thank you. I said, my name is Martha, and this is Yanis. And I said, we're here because we like you and we want to talk with you. And we're Christians. Looked at me like that. Christians? I said, yes. Which church you go? I said, we go to the First Church, and I'm from Father Church. Oh, I used to go to that First Church too. I said, really? He said, yes, in my 20s. I said, what happened then? What happened? He said, well, I got mixed up in my teens and blah, blah, blah. So he started telling his story. We were there for half an hour. He had calmed down, and we became the best friends with this guy. He would invite us for dinners and lunch and calling us, and all kind of discussion we had with him. He was a similar case like the other one. Divorced parents threw him away, and so he built up an anger in him for everybody, and he was suing everybody. He even sued the police. So the police were afraid to approach him to that extent. This was months. So when he died, the rest of the transvestites were telling, at last he's dead. So I said, aren't you coming to the funeral tomorrow? No way, they said. But the next day they were there at the funeral. I said, why are you here? You said you weren't coming. I said, we came to see if he's dead, really. Yeah. This was, yeah. But Aloma was the first one who asked to attend Bible studies with us. It was because of him we started a Bible study to the transvestites, and he was the only one who was really interested, and he was asking questions. That particular day, I did not share about forgiveness. It was a totally different subject, passage I read from the Bible. And he stopped me and he said, do you mean that I have to forgive those that harmed me? I said, I don't say that. The Bible says so. And he said, yes, but if I do so, they'll think I'm stupid. I said, it doesn't matter what they think. What matters is what God thinks when you do that. He said, I'll think about it. Well, years went by, and when he died, he got burned in a fire, and we just went to his funeral, and I always had in my heart that I'm convinced that he was in heaven. Yeah. I said, Aloma is in heaven. And a couple of months ago, I was asked to do over the Zoom presentation of the work to the transvestites. And I did. And somebody, and I mentioned about Aloma, of course, and somebody from the people, a young boy who was listening, he said, "Can I share something?" I said, "Sure." He said, "Well, I met Aloma a few months ago at a bar, and I was with some friends, but he was dressed up as a man. He had a hat on, and he was sitting by himself, and he was next to our table. So he turned around to me and said, you know, I am Aloma, but now I'm not Aloma, I'm Babis." And that's the name he used to tell us the last times. And he said, you know what? I used to be a transvestite, and a bad one, he said. But now I know that if I die, I'm going to go to heaven.
Wow. Praise God.
So God confirmed what I was feeling for Aloma, for Babis. And all that because we loved him, we cared for him. One time we had a fight because I supported somebody else, another transvestite, and I told him, "Listen, you're in the same street, fighting for your life. You should be friends and not fighters." And he got upset. How dare I put him into the same level as the other one? Mm-hmm. So he said, "I don't want you to call again. I don't want you to pass by me again. Forget me." So I didn't, because that's what an agreement we had made, that if you don't want me to come, I won't come. But that was Christmas time, and during Easter, at that time, Easter time, we would give gifts. As I was passing by his place to go to the office, the Lord spoke to me very clear. He said, "Go apologize." I said, "Lord, I apologize for what? I didn't do anything. He did whatever he did." The Lord said, "Go apologize to him." So I told the team, "Okay, guys, we're going to go first to Aloma." And they said, "You crazy?" He said, he doesn't want us. "It doesn't matter, we'll go." So I passed by, we get out of the car, the whole team, 5 of us. Usually we go either 2 or 3 while the others are in the car. But this time we all went together, and he saw us, and I'm looking at him. And the rest stayed aside and went to the other transvestites while I head towards him. And he's looking at me. And I said, "Hello." And he says, "Hi." I said, "I come to apologize." "You have come to apologize to me?" I said, "Yes." And I didn't know what to say. He said, no, you got it all wrong." He said, "I should come and apologize. I am the old man, the stubborn old man, that I've got my own ideas. You were very kind to me, and I sent you away. I'm sorry," he said. I said, "Well, it doesn't matter." I said, friends. I hugged him, kissed him, and that was it. That was it. We're friends from there until the end. He just saw Christ in reality there. And yeah, Aloma is in heaven. So you never know what happens. You never know what goes into their mind. We are called to preach the gospel. That was another thing that the Lord had told me, where, again with Aloma, the night I left from him, when he was all upset, etc., And I went home. I used to go home and write down the names of the people we met and whatever was discussed. And I said, Lord, why did you send me to them? Don't you see that I cannot change them? They don't want to change. And the Lord said, Martha, I didn't ask you to change them. That's my job. I asked you to preach the gospel. And that changed the whole thing. All I had to do was preach the gospel in word, in actions. It's difficult. It's very difficult. People always ask me, aren't you afraid to go there? No. Why should I be afraid? Well, wherever they are, they're really places where you hear one kill the other, etc. I said, first of all, we go with the angels, and they're protecting us. And this is what even Alama told me. He said, aren't you afraid to come here? I said, why should I be afraid? I don't see any danger here. Of course you don't see. You've got angels all over you. So, I mean, one of them confirmed this. And besides, I'm not involved in whatever goes on. I just carry the gospel of Christ. They're not going to touch us. And if there is a danger, God is going to stop us to go there. So we need to go really with the love of Christ there. And love really wins everything. Love stops everything. So, number one, we need to hear and obey the Lord. Ask the Lord, okay, I've got this thing in my heart. Is this what you want me to do? Or, Lord, I'm afraid to do this. He won't force you to do it. But if you want to do it but you are afraid, then He will work in you and take this fear away. A lot of people say, I would like to do what you do, but I can't do it. There's no way you can do something. God will do it through you, but you have to be available. You have to say, okay, Lord, here I am. Use me for your glory. This is what we read in the Bible. I mean, Isaiah, he was afraid, but the Lord changed him. He changed his mouth. He changed his speaking. None of them was ready to go out. God worked in him. Moses, 40 years, the Lord worked in him to bring him out. So thank God that He didn't work 40 years in me, otherwise. But all the Lord wants from us is to be available. I'm not gifted. Certainly none of us is gifted, but God gifts us. God gives us the weapons to go out and fight against the enemy. So we need to trust the Lord. There's nothing, absolutely nothing that we cannot do with the Lord. The same concept goes for the girls. If you have a heart for the girls, it's exactly the same thing. 16 years I was serving the transvestites. Well, 8 years I was a director. The last 8 years of Greece, I was the director of Niazoi. I had to go to the brothels. I had to go to the streets. Remember, in the beginning, I didn't like it. That's not where my heart was. I could not understand these girls. So when I stepped in as a director, I didn't want to be a director. I don't even want again to be again a director. But the Lord put me there and I said, okay, Lord, you do. You lead me. I don't know what to do here. The girls felt from me the love of the mother. They would see me as a mother. And I wasn't going to the girls. There was a team that goes to to the brothels and the teams that goes to the bar route. I wasn't involved. I would just go to make sure that everything was done properly, but that was all. But these girls would just see me there, and they immediately, because of my age, because of the way I behaved, they saw the mother in me. And I always pulled back because there was a team for them. But to this day, I receive messages from the girls, you are my mother and I miss you. Because, and I didn't do anything, but I was there when they needed it. They would come to my office and share with me what they had in their heart. And I would always tell them, whatever you receive from me, it's Christ. Anybody in here has got Christ, so you need to see Christ in us, but we need to show Christ. I won't say anything more, but I'll let you ask me questions because probably you have questions.